Okay, so let's practice some operations with integers. The first problem I have here is positive 3 minus 7. And an easy way to think of this problem is positive 3, so this is our positive 3, combined with negative 7. So 3 minus 7 can be rewritten as positive 3 plus negative 7. Remember what we talked about in class. This is like a potato-potato situation where you have two things that mean the exact same thing. All right, so two different ways to write the exact same thing. For me personally, this one right here is easier for me to solve because I know what to do with my counters. So positive 3 can be represented in a picture by 3 positive signs. Those are my little counters. Negative 7 can be represented by 7 negative signs. Now remember, I'm going to find my zero pairs. That means this positive one and this negative one, when they add together, when you combine them, they equal 0. So they cancel each other out. Once I've canceled out all my zero pairs, I look to see what's left. I have 4 little negative signs, so my answer to positive 3 plus negative 7, or 3 minus 7, or positive 3 combined with negative 7, is negative 4. Let's look at this one, positive 2 minus negative 4. Now remember, when you see a double negative like this, the first minus sign you see means opposite of, okay? So we can reread this like this. 2 combined with the opposite of negative 4. So then we can change that. What is the opposite of negative 4? Well, the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. So we can say 2 combined with positive 4. And we can rewrite it like this. Okay? So this problem right here, 2 minus negative 4 means 2 combined with the opposite of negative 4. We know that the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4, so we can say 2 combined with 4, and then we can write it like this. All right, so I showed you this in class because we know we can end up writing the problem like this, 2 combined with positive 4, because that's the opposite of negative 4. We can take those two negative signs and join them together. And then we can draw a line like this through the parentheses. And now it looks like 2 plus 4. So if I wanted to do my pictures, my little counters, I could do 1, 2 to represent the positive 2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 to represent the positive 4. I don't have any zero pairs to cancel out, so I'm just going to count up the plus signs or add them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 minus negative 4, which is 2 combined with the opposite of negative 4, which is 2 combined with positive 4, is positive 6. Negative 1 minus negative 5. Now remember, we just talked about what this negative sign means right here, that minus sign. When you see a double negative, that means negative 1 combined with the opposite of negative 5. So what I can do here is I can join those together and draw this, and it looks like a plus sign. So negative 1 can be represented by 1 minus sign combined with 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I've got my picture. I'm going to find my zero pairs and cancel them out. And then what's left is my answer. So negative 1 minus negative 5 can be rewritten as negative 1 plus 5, because remember, we're combining negative 1 with the opposite of negative 5, and the opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. So when I combine those together in my picture, I see that I have 4 positives left. So my answer is positive 4. Negative 6 minus 1. Anytime you see a subtraction problem with integers like this, you can rewrite it. Negative 6 plus negative 1. So negative 6 minus 1 is the same thing as saying negative 6 plus negative 1. Negative 6 combined with negative 1. And I can draw this out with my pictures. Negative 6 represented in my pictures, you guessed it, was 6 minus signs. And now I'm going to represent the negative 1 with one more minus sign. So if I look in my box, I don't have any zero pairs that cancel out, so I count up the minus signs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my answer to negative 6 minus 1, or negative 6 combined with negative 1, is negative 7. Let's do some multiplying. Now remember, multiplying and dividing, you do them exactly the same way you always have. You just have to remember the rules about the signs. When you multiply a negative by a positive, your answer will be negative. So here my answer is going to be negative 6. Let's draw a picture to prove it. What this means is I need to draw negative 2 3 times. So what will I get if I have 3 groups of negative 2? Well, to represent negative 2, I'm going to do the 2 little minus signs. I need to do this 2 more times so that I have written or drawn negative 2 3 times. So here's 1 time, here's 2 times, here's 3 times. So I've drawn negative 2 3 times. That gave me a total of 6 negatives. So negative 2 times positive 3 equals negative 6. Negative 4 times negative 2. Remember, when you have a negative times a negative, it equals a positive. All right? So we know that negative 4 times negative 2 is going to be, oops, I don't want that red. I want that black. It's going to be a positive number because we have 1, 2 negative signs. We have 2 negatives multiplied by each other. So our answer is going to be a positive number. And then we can just look at 4 and 2. What is 4 times 2? It's 8. So negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. With positive integers, when you multiply a positive integer times a positive integer, it's just like what you've always done. 5 times 2, if they're both positive, positive 5 and positive 2, is going to equal 10. So if I had 5 groups of 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 2, that's 10 total. Negative 4 divided by negative 2. When you divide a negative integer by another negative integer, your answer will be positive. Let's look at why that is the case. Let's say I have negative 4, and I can represent that in objects by 4 little negative signs. Well, I want to put them into groups. So I have my negative 4 right here. I want to put them into groups where there are negative 2 in each group. So I'm going to make groups that contain negative 2 of my little negative signs, and I'm going to do that until I can't do it anymore. Here's one group, here's 2 groups, and now I have all of my little negative integer counters in groups. So right here was a total of negative 4, and then I put them in groups with -2 in each group. There's -2 in this group and -2 in that group. And when I did that, I made a total of 2 groups. So -4 divided by -2 equals a +2 because it was 2 groups of -2 that gave me -4. All right, last one. A negative divided by a positive. When you have a negative divided by a positive, because you have one negative and one positive, your answer is going to be negative. So right away I can go ahead and write that negative sign over there because I know I'm going to need it. Now, let's do this in a picture. -15. I can represent -15 by 15 little negative signs. So there's my 15 minus signs. And if I divide these 15 negative integers into 3 groups, then I want to know how many are in each group. So let's divide into groups. 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. So I have 1, 2, 3 groups, and in each group I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's -5 in that group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 negatives in that group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 negatives in that group. So I have 15 total. When I split the 15 total up into these 3 groups, there are 5 negatives in each group. So -15 divided by +3 is going to give me -5, because if I split the -15 into 3 groups, there are going to be 5 negatives in each group.